Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Mental Toughness and Body Show. Today we're going to talk about turning passion into profit. Some people sit on the sideline of life hoping for better outcomes, but our guest today is going to show you how he's taken his love for surfing, gone professional, then done what most pro athletes fail to do, and that's found a way to adapt his skill to create a very successful business and career away from sport. So on this podcast, we've interviewed people from all walks of life, from your A-list celebrities, billionaires, to Olympic gold medalists. And today we have former pro surfer, author, and co-founder of Basic Bananas marketing education organization, Christo Hall. Christo, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Rob. Really happy to be here, and yeah, excited to talk today and share some value with your audience, your listeners. Appreciate the nice introduction. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let's. So I'm just fascinated by why anyone has got the guts to get into the ocean and battle those big waves and so forth. So maybe let's touch on the surfing side of it. The how obviously you started as a child enjoying the surfing. Tell us about that decision where you say, do you know what, I want to go pro, I want to make a living from this.
Yeah. So as a kid, I first played in the ocean. I had a couple of older brothers, and we got in the surf. And I remember just my dad pushing me on a wave when I was probably about 6 years old on a boogie board, and it felt like I was flying. He pushed me on this wave, and it was like nothing I'd felt before. And I was literally like 6 years old. I'm 46 now. So it's like, it's a long time ago, but I still remember like
that moment,
the feeling through my body. And then there was these two defining moments, really. That one where it just lifted up, and I pumped my fist forward like Superman, because it was like I was flying, and I was away. I was free. Yeah. It was like, just this magic. I was like, what is this? And then I just loved it. Then I was just hooked. And then a bit later, I was probably about 8 years old, and we were away on a camping trip with my dad and my two older brothers. And my brother caught a wave, and he turned across the wave on his surfboard, and this magical little moment where he went across the green, like unbroken part of the wave. It might be hard for people who don't surf to understand, but like as a wave breaks, that's sort of on the clean green part of the wave that hasn't crumbled yet. And he was trimming across the wave, and it was like the world. I just went into shock. I was looking at like, my brother, what is he? What is that? Like, and really I was hooked forevermore. Like I surf every day, and I have friends that look at me and they just say, how on earth are you so excited and passionate about doing it still? I don't know if I'm just wired that way, or it's a bug that if it gets you're gone. Like the whole you can express yourself, you can get yourself pounded by the ocean and feel refreshed and humbled. It's a magical thing.
Honest.
But they're just one thing then led to another, where I was like, if I can do this as a career. There was obviously a little bit of natural talent there. Some people surf all their lives and they don't reach certain levels. So there's the whole conversation around 10,000 hours. You need to be an expert in something. Surfing, there's people that have done their 10,000 hours and they don't, just this weird progression where they're lucky. Something I love to do had some natural ability. And then it just, from about 10 years old, I was already competing, and it was like, this is what I want to do. If I can do this, this is the meaning of life, basically. So from then on, that was my priority. Nothing like school. I was out the window, looking out the window.
So was the dream to like make your career as a pro surfer and just do that for the rest of your life, kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as a kid, I thought that's it, like that's it. I could see some pro surfers. They became my heroes. Posters on the wall. That's all I wanted to do. In school, I was just drawing pictures in books, and I was fortunate from a pretty young age, a young teen, about 14, 15 years of age. I got sponsored by Billabong, the clothing label and accessories label, Billabong. And they gave me things, like basically my mum didn't have to buy me clothes from when I was about 14 years old till ever. So, because I'd get a seasonal pack in the mail, and it was just from then on, they were almost like grooming me to, they'd take us on trips, and with coaches and things. And yeah, so it became very clear, like the purpose of life is just keep getting better at surfing and do well in the next event and well in the next event and so on. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a slight weird side note. Do you have to be very flexible to do surfing?
People can do it in different ways. So some are really powerful, kind of less flexible, and then they can really rip a wave apart, and they're good in big waves and so on. And then, but a lot of it, yeah, you got to be flexible more and more for the high performance. It's, there's a bit of almost gymnastics involved.
Yeah, that's what
And
it looks like. And I'm thinking, man, I could not do this. I'm like a surfboard. I think I'm not very rigid. Oh, sorry, not very flexible. And so where do you get to that, or when did you get to that decision where you said, you know what, I need a plan B here. Yeah, I'm not going to make my millions on the circuit. I need to do, the business what you're doing now.
Yeah, so throughout my surfing career, maybe I always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. Both my parents are small business owners. My grandparents were both sides. It's all I really knew and knew how to do. So even while I was competing professionally, I started running like elite coaching camps for young kids and teens to help them. I was doing other little ventures, even in school back when I was always coming up with little ideas like buy lollies at the shop on the way to school, sell them at school for a profit, like it's just these little random business ideas. And then while I was still competing, the last couple of years, I bought into a surfboard manufacturing business that produced learner surfboards, and we sold surfboards to surf schools, sold them in bulk. And I just knew I'd seen a lot of professionals where when you finish surfing, this might sound like a typical case of spoiled brat syndrome, as I like to title it, but where you get to the end, and if a sponsor drops you, which happened to me eventually, they dropped it back, they're downgraded in a big way, and it's you suddenly can't afford to go to France for the next event, and all these travel the world, and your purpose is gone, and a lot of surfers, people, they're lost. And this is where I think, of course, it's like living this amazing experience, and then suddenly it's gone, but it's really your purpose is ripped out from under you, and a lot of the professional surfers end up pretty lost, or they end up, like substance abuse, all sorts of things. Like
I assume so this is just my perception with no knowledge, but my perception is that people, like the majority of people, don't make much money on like many pro circuits, but certainly the pro surfing circuit.
No, absolutely right. It's the top few get, really well paid, and the rest are scrapping for it, because a lot of big brands, then the surf brands, there are limited really big brands, and then they might have, 2 or 3 big team riders, and then the rest they're kind of hanging on to just in case they crack through.
Yeah.
It drips and drabs. So a lot of my surfing was, there was times where I was out of money relying on the next event. So I might fund sort of half the year off sponsorship, half the year off prize money.
Yes.
And then so I knew I needed to make money. And I wanted to, this sort of thing happened where I was surfing around the world, and part of me knew it was going to come to an end. So I knew.
So what age are you there?
About 25.
Right.
Yeah, 25. And then as I was like 26, 27, I sort of wound it down. And then 28, kind of just doing more.
What's sort of the top end for where, like in tennis, by mid-30s, it's like there's only going to be a few left, but is surfing the same, or is it a little bit?
Well, I probably stopped a little early. I could have kept going, and I sort of look back and think maybe I should have kept going a bit more, and the top age is realistically probably around the 25 mark.
Okay.
Where people kind of, peak, but there are, of course, exceptions where they get smarter at competing, they get stronger, and by age 30, they're peaking.
Okay.
Someone like, there's Kelly Slater, who's been the greatest surfer of all time. He's still just dropping off the tour pretty much now. He's just had a child, and I think he's 52 this year. So
wow.
He won one of the world championship events 2 years ago, age 50. So he's like,
wow,
he's exception. He's like an alien. He's like a Michael Jordan that never stopped. Tiger Woods that stayed at the peak, or Federer or something that just remained invincible.
Yeah.
But I just sort of thought, how can I surf? How can I fund it? Because I want to keep surfing these best waves around the world. I don't want to feel like I'm depriving myself.
Yeah.
So while I was running the surfboard business, then I started doing website development. Then I started learning online marketing to make more money to sell more boards. And I started doing all these kind of entrepreneurial things, and almost maybe there was a little bit of a panic, like anxiety, like I've got to make money and I've got to fund myself to keep this lifestyle and be able to travel, like not have a business where I'm tied to like shop opens at 9, closes at 5, where I don't have to be there every minute. And so the online world really excited me, and I started to then apply different marketing skills from online marketing, and it really kind of snowballed because I started to do things in my own business, and then people learn about it, and then what they wanted me to help. And this is like 2008, 2009, when it's not, people weren't doing much, and there was no Facebook for business and things. And I got really excited. How do we just make the phone ring? And then one thing led to another, and I'm helping other people. And I just like really, it might sound a little strange, but I was always in my head thinking of surfing. So I surf, my happiness is gauged on how well I'm surfing. And if I'm enjoying the ocean, I go every morning. I went today. Before this, I want to just get in the ocean to feel good and have a surf. And so I just put my head down into business, and I think obviously things evolve, but like long story short, then build a business with 36 team members just prior to the pandemic, and turning over millions. There was a point where I think my competitive spirit, I love marketing and sales because I see a win, like you really see an outcome.
Yeah.
And so I could see these wins within marketing and helping people like grow their audience, grow their sales. There's these quantifiable wins happening, and it just was almost a bit addictive for me to help with that and like stay in that and focus on these triggers that keep growing a business. And I think from surfing, when you're surfing, there's so much distraction, like any sport or anything you're doing. You're going to do a public speaking event, there's all this distraction, and you're worried about what people are thinking, and your internal mind chatter starts going wild. And sometimes you get so anxious, it's almost like your head's got a whirlwind stuck in it. Like you get nervous and anxious. And because of my experience from surfing, in the lead up to a competition, it's a big deal because you have these. It might be a month before the next event, and you might be flying halfway around the world just for this event. And it might be each round in an event's only 20 minutes. You got 4 people in it, 2 progress, 2 are out. So you might arrive and be out the next day, and you've spent 10 grand to get there.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole meaning of your life is that next event to do well. So this kind of process of anxiety and dealing with my internal mind chatter, I call my internal voice Bronco. I even have a name for it. It's so there. I call him Bronco, the little internal dialogue that goes, oh no, don't stuff this up. Oh no, you're going to screw this up. Oh no, this person's looking at you, And I kind of learned these strategies to work through these anxieties and things. And a simple thing I've always focused on is focus on triggers. Like a trigger is what a title. So in a surfing event, like I had one event when I was in a pro surfer where I was against Tom Curran. He was like my hero, as a kid, and he's a lot older, but he was a world champion and so on. And this guy brought a crowd to the beach. There was a big crowd showing up, and I'm against him. And suddenly my internal voice is just going crazy, and I'm anxious, and I'm thinking I need to put on heavy metal to pump up. No, I need to go for a walk to calm down. And I'm not in the headspace to perform well. And then like I learned these strategies from different coaches and mentors and things I worked with. Just strip it back to, so a trigger in that example would be just go back to what I do best. Like forget the outcome. Don't want to beat him. Don't worry about the crowd. Don't worry about what people are saying. All my job is to like go back to what do? I move my surfboard on the water in this little way that's like 2% better than those guys. I'll score a little bit higher. That's all I need to do to win, and just like simplify it. And then in business, I do the same thing where I'm like, I hate sales and trying to like be this, I don't want to be a cheesy salesperson, and I'm anxious and all these things we see in business and these little things that hold us up in business. So strip it back and go, my trigger in that example is talking to people and being friends with them and serving them. Forget about like, are they going to buy? Are they going to this, or like, online marketing, people get worried about the tech. It's just like, just strip it right back to the simple little things to implement. And that's where we're good. It's like you get on a chat GPT and like, create me 5 social media posts. It's actually fun. But when you think about what am I going to do on social media, like the whole thing's too much to think about. So it's kind of like get back to these little triggers that result in the outcome. So focus on triggers, not outcomes. And that's always been a big part of my approach, I guess, to surfing, but also then to business, which has allowed me, a lot of people say, very successful. We all have different measures of success.
Well, we always keep moving the bar upwards, don't we? So
yeah.
You never really reach that end point. So do you think with all because I'm assuming that like you'd never get me out there in the ocean sitting on in deep water and waves and that kind of stuff. But do you think, based on what you've just said, do you feel like you are now more invincible because of the mindset that you've had to develop? Obviously, there's that physical fear. Like for most people, standing on the beach, looking at you, thinking, "God, is there sharks out there? Are there jellyfish? Are there, the coral that's the wave's going to dump you in, and all that kind of stuff? You don't have a life jacket, and can you swim strong enough, and all that kind of stuff." Has the sport made you more invincible?
For sure, absolutely. A lot of different processes, like even just that focus on triggers. There's so many different strategies I've kind of developed to deal with anxiety, to progress moving forward. It's absolutely made me more invincible. I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself, but I definitely have better tools and strategies. Some of them came after the fact, like after competing as a professional surfer for years, 9 years. And then afterwards I go, oh, that's what I was doing. I could see it now. And then even though in business, these little things are so small, but some things make people procrastinate, slow down on their progress and so on. I see it all the time. There's, it's like we're comfortable in a certain level of success, right? It's like people's bank account. They kind of always hover around the same amount of money in the account's comfortable.
Yep.
And if we fall down, if we're getting behind, we will hustle to get back to where we're comfortable. And if we go above, we're like, oh, I've done enough this week. I can
That's
take the
right.
pedal off the gas. Or it's like, I want to get fitter and stronger. Like, you'd know more than this about anyone, but I've done enough this week. I've done enough exercise this week.
Yeah.
I'll like chill out, or I can eat a burger now or whatever.
Yeah.
And even in these kind of like settings where we move, just to like, once again, strip it back and go, just focus on just forget about it, move forward. Because I had times where in business, it like, I even had just a memory just come back to me where like money was coming in so fast. This is no lie, where I got short on breath just looking in the account. Through Basic Bananas, where I'm looking in the account and there's extra zeros popping in at the end of the week, where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a 6-figure week. And I just would get, and I got anxious, looking at it. I'm like, just strip it back, just go to focus on what works and what brings things in. Yeah, for sure. I had this funny story actually, when I was about 15, Billabong flew me to Hawaii, and they put up a house. They kind of groom their up and comings, and they flew me to Hawaii. The night I arrived in Hawaii, was supposed to get picked up at the airport by a surf photographer to take us to the house. He didn't show up. The story, I don't know if this is true. I never even met up with the guy. Apparently he came across the island to pick us up, me and one other teenager, and apparently he went to a strip club, got distracted, and never showed up. So
As you do.
And the flights arrived back then in Hawaii at midnight. So we arrived at midnight. I'm a 15-year-old with another guy who's 16. We come out of the airport. By about 2 a.m., the deadbolts are locking on the airport doors and the lights are going out. We look across, there's one limousine that hadn't got a ride. So like, eyeballed each other. He said, I'll take you across the island. It's about an hour drive. He said, where are you staying? We didn't know.
Yeah.
Said, apparently the photographer was supposed to pick us up somewhere near Rocky Point, which is just like naming a suburb, just drop us there. So he dropped us. We went down, tried to sleep on the beach, came eventually at about 4 a.m., couldn't sleep. We dragged our boards based on some conversations in Australia prior to leaving. Apparently house that this guy was staying in was left of the Rocky Point track. Now there's multiple tracks, and the track
Yeah.
is long, and there's about 6 houses on the
Just
left.
turn left at the
Yeah.
opera house, just somewhere there.
So we go to this house, knock on the door, on a door. The guy who answers the door, I recognize immediately. His name's Vatia David. He's an ex-professional surfer that's a giant from Tahiti.
Right.
So he answers the door. I think, oh my goodness, we've woken him up. He's gonna murder us,
Yeah.
He says, come on in, all good, come on in, lay down on the floor and da-da-da. And so we come on in, we lay down on the floor. He looks up, he's really nice. And then he puts on this jungle music, starts to smoke something. I don't know what it was. I won't comment on that. And then I'm trying to get some sleep. He says, we're going surfing. And where we go on Pipeline, he says. Now, Pipeline's the pinnacle of surfing where people actually die.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, throughout my career, I've had 2 friends get knocked unconscious out there, dragged in. I've seen there be people die, I've been over there. And he says, we're going there. It was big yesterday. Let's go. Grab your biggest board. Drives us down. Anyway, we paddle out and, I'm so scared. I'm walking down the track thinking,
What the hell are we doing?
Die. Well, yeah, this is just how I die. This is death. So we paddle out. Anyway, follow him out in the dark pretty much. And at one point, it's if you catch a wave, you're lucky. If you don't, you don't. I turn to catch a wave, and this bigger one looks at me and he says, "Go." And I just paddled into this wave, and it's total instinct.
Yeah.
When you can't think. So I'm paddling for a wave that's approaching like a typical wave on top of the water, like a lump.
Yeah.
And as you paddle into these waves, what happens is they hit the volcanic reef what they break on, and it's like the floor drops out. About 2 stories drops out below you.
Right.
So
and then you got to go down it.
Vertical face, all your skill is on the line and 100% focus. So imagine in this kind of moment, I'm not thinking like, oh, I wonder if I got any emails, or any Facebook messages, or any distractions. And but anyway, the long story short, I make it, but it's 100% focused, and these little tingles through my spine, and I ride through this wave. At the end of it, the adrenaline rushes through me so hard that my knees are shaking and I'm out of control.
Yeah.
And it's just these now little kind of lead into, but I see in business as well, like, my life depended on focus in that moment. And in business, our life depends on focus. Like, we don't give it the value, the power that focus has for all of us. If we really do 2 hours work focus per day, we can really kick butt. Like, if we really focus and forget about distractions, forget about competitors, because I've always known, even in surfing and business, my biggest competitor is myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll always be you and your own distractions. And so just being like ruthless with focus, that and even to the point where I believe you can't have a to-do list in front of you. You can't have your calendar open in front of you. You can't have an inbox, because we all have multiple screens with like, there's my calendar over there, there's my team chat there, there's my inbox. Every time you glance at it, you see, oh, at 2 p.m. I'm doing that other thing. That's a focus thief. Like, there goes. So you just like close them, And if you operate, I hear excuses. People say, oh yeah, but we use like a project management software. Yeah, but when you're in a task, close it.
Yeah.
Need to see what else everyone else is doing and all these things. And so there's one little tip, like a tiny little one I do on that, is like, just close everything off, and on Post-it notes, just write one, like maybe 5 tasks. I write them each on one different Post-it note, and I stack them up. So all I can see is the top one. Close everything off, get rid of any to-do list in front of me, and do the really high priority work so I can get things done. And same with our team. We have rules where if people put the yellow headphones on, you don't distract them. And it's the same, guys, like whether it's a hobby, for a sporting career or in business, there's so many distractions. And if we can just focus like our life depends on it, because your life next week does, next month does, next year, the benefits.
The business is very different like that, isn't it? Because the employee mindset is, like you said before, oh, what's in the bank account? Oh yeah, that's okay. I'm comfortable with that. I keep showing up to work. It doesn't matter whether I'm half asleep at my desk or whatever today, I'm still going to get paid. But if you show up to your business like that, or you show up to a wave like that, you're going to get dumped. In business, you're just not going to make any money, and you're not going to be in business for very long. So it certainly is it's a completely different mindset. So I love where you're coming from. There's just a couple more questions. So say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, well, like I can remember people saying to me when having left chartered accounting, senior management positions and everything, has this for great advice. They said, so going into the health and fitness industry, they're saying, oh, no one makes money from that. When it doesn't work, you can always come back. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for being my biggest champion.
So good.
Um, what would be your advice to somebody that they're really passionate about something? They don't necessarily see how they can turn it into a professional career, or in fact, perhaps I've got a client actually that said this to me, that she was really into the creative space, but she said, I didn't get, and she went to uni and everything. And she said, but I didn't do that because she felt if she had have done a career in that path, she would learn to hate it, which is an interesting way to approach your passion.
Yeah.
So she didn't do it, and she went and did something else. She became a speech pathologist instead. It's like so different to what it is that she's actually really passionate about. So what would your advice be to somebody that's got that passion, don't really know how to monetize it?
Yeah, and where to start.
Mm.
I like, for sure, if you have passion for something, you're already, leaps and bounds
You're
ahead.
winning.
Yeah, you're winning, because a lot of people are floating or like jumping from one thing or trying to work out what they're actually passionate about in the first place.
Yeah.
And what I would say, it's okay to bridge the gap, as in have your employment or your other business or whatever
Mhm.
while you build your
I
passion.
think that's essential, because if you just go all in on the business, say, yeah, great, but let's be realistic about it. I mean, how long it would have taken you to, become profitable and start making good income or replacing your surfing income or whatever. Um, if you go all in on the other thing, well, okay, who's going to support you? It's okay if you've got the financial resources to do that, but I
Yeah,
agree. I think you've got to, until you can make enough in you, say, you're making whatever, you're making your six figures in a week in pro surfing, which would be nice, I'm sure.
yeah,
And say, okay, well, I'm not going to swap over to full-time business until I replace all of that income.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
you're making it too hard for yourself.
Making it too hard, and you might change direction, and so it's because what tends to happen is you take a few steps forward. I think, like, really the approach I'd say is just think how you can provide value to others. Like most of us, especially if there's a passion, it might be somehow you've got to be of service to others. It could be of service to others through an actual service, or of service to others through a product. How does it provide value to others? And then a big thing that I see is people then get distracted and worry about competitors, and they overanalyze this and that. If you just sort of, like, to some extent, just stay in your lane. Like, you know who you want to serve. Start building out the ideas, how you provide value and service to other people. It's like with Basic Bananas, that's my business's name. Like, the people, I had advice from a woman who was doing about $1 million a month in her business at the time. She said, do not call it Basic Bananas. Like, that's terrible. No, I kind of like it, because at the time it was like all the marketing businesses were like, small business, I don't know, Marketing Institute Australia, or they're really cheesy, like your Marketing Guru, Maverick, blah, 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 or whatever. So I was like, let's just have a bit of fun with it. We'll make a tagline so people can actually understand what the thing is. But I know we want to work with small business people that can be real and can have a bit of fun at the same time, and it's catchy. Let's go with it, and we went with it, and then, and this is no joke. It was probably only maybe 12 months, 18 months later, people who were in her rooms told me that she was using Basic Bananas as an amazing example of
Mhm.
branding.
Right.
So it's like this, but you know what I mean? We had to like push through, and like you said, your greatest champion there that knocks you on the head going, that'll never work. See you when you come back,
Yeah.
once you come back to a real career. Um, but the reality is, if you're passionate about it, like, of all the people out there, especially in health, like you shared, like how many, we all need health. Yeah, so just focusing on how you provide value, knowing who your customers are, like, and who you want to serve, and then just stay in your lane. You may then adjust as you go, because sometimes you work out, oh, I'm consulting, or I'm providing a product, or I'm this, and you tack, or your customers change. as you evolve, you know, you might start getting a more lucrative style of customer, and you want to make sure you adapt your offerings to keep growing and moving in the right direction. But I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Like we're not here forever, you know, while we're alive and ticking, go for it, or at least on the side as a side project to build it, like you were saying, while you got your safety net of your backup. And I like to think that you're only really 90 days deep if you ever get, as long as you don't go to, you know, like crazy, like borrowing, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars and put yourself in a massive hole. If you know, keep your wits about you, and if you do get into a bit of debt or whatever, or, you know, you can get employed, you can get it. You usually like 90 days, you can get yourself back, you know, out of a bit of a hole if you have to. And yeah, sometimes a little bit of urgency does help, you know, help us hustle. I like to, whether it's true or not, just tell myself I have a belief that when my back's against the wall, that's when I perform at my best.
Yeah.
You know, so there's nothing like helping you focus when you really need to get things done. Yeah.
What's the greatest advice that you've ever heard and taken?
This is the $1 million question. Yeah, that for me, really, I like a couple of things come to mind randomly, but I like really just keeping a balance day to day. So every single week, have a little list of 3 things. These are three things I'd like to focus: your health, your fun, and your education. Because if you are looking after health, if you're having a little bit of fun and education every single week, it doesn't have to be like a massive thing. It might be reading 20 minutes a day, or you know, listening to an ebook while you drive. There's learning. As long as you're growing, you stay excited, you stay hungry, you implement new things. A little bit of fun. It might be, hey, I'm going to catch up with a mate and have a beer on Friday, or you're going to go for a walk with my, you know, with my dog and play on the beach. You know, it doesn't have to be huge. Yeah, and I might say I want to do yoga twice this week, and I might not. Sometimes I don't even like to schedule it in because it feels too rigid. So I just like almost like a thing I'll tick off through the week. Another little random tip that I don't think I've heard from anywhere, but something I took from professional surfing. Funnily enough, I've written a book which is full of these strategies, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But when you're coming up to a big event, so this is where most people get really nervous. So for me, a big event might have been a surfing competition, but nowadays it might be going to do a keynote presentation. I, you know, was flown to Canberra not that long ago, Bali for a big business conference, Melbourne, Sydney, like big ones where there might be 700 people in the room, and you know, sometimes you're sitting around out the back and you've got to wait 40 minutes, and it's sort of hard to sit still, you know.
Yeah. You just want to get into it.
Yeah, so something I've taken from surfing that people would always say, you know, visualize winning and the positive, or you're standing on stage with the trophy, and it just didn't work for me. It almost made me more nervous, and then it didn't work out. I'd be annoyed, you know, and really, really upset. So what I did recognize is if I lost, this is where it's interesting, an event, how'd I feel afterwards? The emotional charge through my body was so much more intense from losing even than winning. There are still losses that almost keep me awake at night sometimes if I think about them too much, you know, from so many years back. But that emotional charge, and then what would I do? I'd go for a surf outside the competition, and I would perform the best ever once it's over, because I'm a bit pissed, you know. I'm like, I'm going to take this. So what I'd do is intentionally visualize myself having already lost before the events. So if I could feel I was starting to get a bit nervous, and this could be someone public speaking, it could be any hobby event, any sport, any important business meeting, to help deflate your nerves and step into a bit more power, I'd actually before it think, if I stuff this up, you know, and it was obviously a bit easier with surfing because I had plenty of reference points to go back to. But you just, I think if I really stuff this up and I'm walking away, how do I feel? A bit of a pit in my stomach, a bit of this, and it helps to just deflate the nerves, you know, to then step into it and go, well, you know what? I actually am at 0 here. Like, you haven't impressed it. You haven't done anything to actually get in there and do it. So you actually are at 0. You've lost until you do something else. So it actually helped me.
And you start at 0, don't you, with the scoring in surfing? You start at 0, and then you've got to earn the points.
Absolutely. So you have lost, and and then even so come into an event, and then visualize almost like losing. And something else I'd say to people, if that's part of your strategy, if you've got important meetings, just develop little routines as well. Like think about when something went well, or a podcast interview well, or writing an article went well. What did you do right before it? And just try and get little routines to prepare. So like before this podcast, I did 10 minutes of yoga. I know it's a mental thing, but
So
I
you
need
haven't done anything today. You went surfing, you've done yoga.
it's all easy, you fit it in. But just that 10-minute, what I feel like is if my body's activated, my brain's activated.
Yes.
Yeah. So just getting a little routine, and then you can't kick yourself either. So you can't come away from an event going, or an opportunity or a sales meeting or whatever it is, or thinking, oh, I stuffed it, or even if it's just writing an article, oh, I didn't do well with that. As long as you're prepared and you did what you could, even if it's a 10-minute routine before it, you did what you could. So you can't really kick yourself
Yeah.
at the
Gotcha.
end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a probably much more than you were expecting for the answer there. But a few
No, it's great to
examples.
get the insight. Last question before I just ask you to finish up on about your book. How do
Yes.
you think you'd like to be remembered?
As someone who is really of service to small business people. So change the way small business people think, the way small business people operate, is my calling. I'm very clear on it. I'm of service to small business people, and that's where in my life I make the biggest impact. I can see, it might sound a little cheesy, but it works for me. So don't spoil my dream. I believe I'm like in the business of transforming people's lives, even though my skill, my method is marketing, because as someone's business grows, their income goes up. We help them make more profit. That's exciting, but it's after having done it for 15 years, it doesn't get me out of bed. What gets me out of bed in the morning is that means that suddenly their wife doesn't have to work anymore, or they can have children now because this financial stress isn't there. They can buy a home that they wanted to live in. They can go on a holiday. That it removes, when you have money, people say money doesn't make you happy, but it makes you
Gives you opportunities.
gives you opportunity, and it takes away the stress. So it does make you happy. If you got $1 million in the bank, that you got certainty in what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? You're not under the stress that does bring unhappiness. So yeah, it doesn't cuddle and kiss you at night. Well, could pay for it. Normally it doesn't, but but it does. Only people, it's usually people that have money say it doesn't make you happy. It's like the ones that don't have money, I'm sure they'd be a lot happier if they did. So it's like that transformation that I can bring to people through the methods of, increasing their profits. That's my calling. Yeah.
Great work. Great work. So you've got a bunch more helpful tips and information in your book. So I'm sure you've got a copy there. Do you want to hold it up, and we'll put a link in here beyond the break? We'll put a link in. I'm assuming it's available on Amazon and so forth. So we'll put a link in at the description of this podcast so people can go and grab it there. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to use your services?
Yep. Yeah. You can find Christo Hall. You can find me online, but otherwise Basic Bananas is the best. That's where we, serve people the most, through my business called basicbananas.com. There's
we'll put a link in the description as well, for that. Are you active on social media? Do you want people to reach out on there as well? They can follow what you do.
For sure. LinkedIn or any of the platforms. Basic Bananas, you can follow it's usually the best, the Basic Bananas profiles, but also I'm on there and active as well. More than happy to connect with people.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Christo. Well, this has been really insightful. Thanks so much. I haven't had a pro surfer on the podcast before. So I was fascinated to have this conversation where you keep going for a few more hours, I'm sure. Thanks so much for being here today and adding all that value. And like I say, go grab the book, hold the book up again. Go grab his book. It's a great book, Beyond the Break. I've heard great reviews about it. Kevin, who connected us today, he raves about your book. So well done. And thanks for being on the show today.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.